Sister, our internet went off in between and we were meditating, so we did not realize. Then we realized halfway.
I was trying to search how could I contact you? Okay. So let's start then. We are studying the fourth noble truth, which is the path to cessation of suffering. Eightfold path divided into three parts of wisdom or pragya, ethical behavior or shila, and mental training or samadhi. So we have discussed the pragya, which is a kind of cognitive training, so as to change our way of thinking, the way we look at the world, the way we look at our suffering. That is the cognitive aspect, and we saw its various manifestations. And then two aspects, Samādhi, right view and right thinking, or right intentions. Then Shil is a kind of behavioral training, behavioral education, so that we can see how to behave so as to minimize suffering. And we saw the three aspects, wise speech, wise action, wise livelihood. And we saw the difficulties and the common doubts about practicing it, and realized that two factors, mental factors of moral shame and moral dread, are very helpful in strengthening our shila or moral precepts or moral behavior. And we'll just study the samadhi, which is a kind of mental training, psychic training, train the mind to become collected so that it can focus. Whatever task you want to do, it can do that task and not allow the mental energy to fritter away, or get distracted easily and do not achieve the required objective. So there are three aspects of it: samma vayama or wise effort, samma sati or wise mindfulness, and samma samadhi or wise collectedness. So let's see, what do they stand for? Wise effort, we start with that. It essentially means four kinds of efforts. What's called samvara or self-restraint, to prevent unwholesome mental states from arising. What are unwholesome mental states? Are you clear by now? What are unwholesome mental states which cause suffering? And what are typical examples?
Temporariness of everyday matters, of everyday things.
Yeah, so what are the unwholesome mental states? Can you give them some name to them?
Anger, frustration,
Jealousy.
So various states which cause us to suffer. Anger, frustration, irritation, jealousy, greed, lust. So training the mind so that it can prevent them from arising. But if they arise even in spite of the training, then determining how to remove them. So it is second part is called pahana or prahan in Hindi, abandonment of arisen unwholesome mental states. So in spite of our best efforts, because of our lack of proper training, unwholesome mental states arise. We do get angry on hearing some words or seeing some things, or we get attracted on seeing somebody. How do you prevent it? Having arisen that, how do you dispel it as quickly as possible? That is the second aspect of the effort. Third aspect is with respect to the wholesome mental states. So the wholesome mental states that have not yet arisen, how to develop them? The wholesome mental state of generosity, truthfulness. If we are not able to speak truth, how do we develop it? What should we do? If we are miserly, how do we develop generosity? And the fourth is anurakkana, or protection, raksha karna, guarding the whole mental states that have arisen. May have already got some good thinking, as a result of which you have got a good uh, understanding of what is helpful and what is not, and yet they may get dissipated because of the various reasons. The most important being the kind of friendship you have, the kind of people you associate with. In hostels, I've seen people come from, conservative middle class families and live in the hostel, and then there are other quote unquote modern families to child and studied in Delhi or Mumbai, and then he tries to ridicule the other boy. Come on, you're not a small child that you shouldn't smoke or have a drink or do all this. So he has that past understanding that these things will create problems. But because of the pressure, because of peer pressure, because of the friendship, association, he also puts it and gets succumbs to that. So a wholesome mental state of abstaining from intoxicants is given up. That habit is given up because it has not been guarded properly. So these are the four kinds of efforts, which means how do we do them? You have to first be aware that these things have arisen. A wholesome mental state has arisen or an unwholesome has risen, and then know how to cultivate wholesome, how to dispel the unwholesome. For moderate unwholesome efforts, mental states, the easiest thing is just to be aware of them and letting them cease. You might have seen already during meditation, many times while meditating, some thoughts will arise. And as soon as you become aware, oh, thought has arisen, the thought will disappear. The thought could be of greed or anger or ill will or irritation. So, mere observation of the mental state can make it get abundant. It cease. But it's not always true. If the mental state is very strong, if the intensity of the strength of the unwholesome state is very strong, you may not be able to observe it even. It may just overwhelm you. So then you have to practice appropriate means, which we'll discuss in due course. Similarly, gathering wholesome states and preventing them from losing means again it reminds us we should be mindful. Oh, this is the reason. And this should be cultivated. It's not a bad quality, it is good quality. Often we have ambivalence about things like abstaining from telling lies, abstaining from taking things which intoxicate us. We have ambivalence, and that ambivalence sitting on the fence makes we can always slip in. Will not be able to protect the wholesome mental state which may arise. No, this is not good, I should not do it. But then if you are ambivalent, you will drop it. One has to work, one has to do practice of that kind. And of course, the practice has to be done with proper energy. If you are too obsessed about them, then you'll become restless. But if you are too lax, oh, come on, chalta hai, whatever, then it will lead to laziness. You'll not be able to do anything. So you have to properly balance the energy, the effort, so that the appropriate results are achieved. So that's the first aspect of the mental training, wise effort, and a very important aspect. During meditation, unwholesome mental states can be, if they can be abandoned as soon as they arise. And if you don't do that, then they become strengthened more and more and more. If an unwholesome mental state arises and we succumb to it, then we increase the probability of it occurring again. The intensity of its occurrence increases. It's like anger, If you allow the anger to overwhelm you, then you'll become more and more prone to anger attacks. And one becomes extremely kind of inflammable person. That any spark and is burst into flames of anger and rage. That has happened because one has not given due attention to it. One thinks, and sometimes people are even ambivalent, Yeah, if I am not angry, how can I get my work done? And then it becomes a habit. And once it becomes a habit, it becomes much more difficult to restrain. Then you have to do proper antidotes have to be applied. So Buddha's teachings present us with suitable antidotes for various unwholesome mental states. Similarly, when wholesome mental states arise, we don't become aware of them, we don't cherish them, we don't appreciate them, and then we let them pass. We don't guard them. And we are not mindful enough of seeing that there are good qualities in others, which I don't have, then we'll not be able to develop them. So it needs mindfulness, awareness, which is actually the second aspect of the training of the mind. Samādhi, right mindfulness.
Can I ask?
Yeah,
Sir, I had a question. May I ask?
no, please.
Sir, in the self-restraint, the first part, yes, sir. Sir, is this an active process or a passive process? The restraint of the unwholesome mental states from arising.
It's an active process. Nothing is going to happen passively. What do you mean? I don't know whether you call meditation an active process or a passive process. What do you call it?
So when I say active passive means do we put an effort to restrain it, or do we try to see it passing, like it is coming, and do we try to...
There's effort required in seeing it passing. It's not easy.
Yes, sir.
If he just says chalta hai, sab gussa to hote hi rehte hain, then you're being relaxed. And that will create more and more possibilities of anger. Especially if you are angry with somebody about whom you don't have to worry that you are being angry with him or her, then you allow it a free run. But if it is somebody with whom you know that consequences of my angry speech to him or her will be dangerous, you'll be very careful. Isn't it? If you're in a job, it's not easy to get angry on your boss. You know the consequences of that. So that acts as a restraint. But at home, you can be easily angry with your mother because, yeah, she is my mother. I can take her for granted. Isn't it?
Yes, sir.
That habit is going to become, it's not going to get confined to the people. Then if the habit is developed again and again and again, that becomes our temperament, that becomes our character trait. And then it's a part of the personality. And then we're inflammable. Either we'll get angry and suppress it, because if we express it, risk is very high, and then we suppress it, and then we become eventually neurotic. You suppress things too much, you get into neurosis. So, neither avoiding, nor expression, nor distraction, being aware, observation of the unwholesome mental state in a dispassionate manner, seeing it arising, not denying it, and waiting for enough time so that it passes away. That is the simplest and the most fundamental way of removing unwholesome mental states, which will operate when the unwholesome mental states are mild. If they are very strong, you will not be able to observe them.
What do we mean by?
So you have to therefore practice again and again and again. It's like wearing out the mind from doing such things. Has to be practiced. That is the effort involved in it.
So there's one more small question. What do we mean by wholesome? Like, what do we call as wholesome?
Which makes us feel happy. Simple.
Okay.
Which makes us and others.
Us and others.
Yes. If there's any mental state by which we feel happy and our actions resulting from that make others feel happy, take it as wholesome.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you.
So you know that if you are expressing gratitude to others, it's a wholesome mental state. If you are being generous, it's a wholesome mental state. If you're expressing friendship to others, it's a wholesome mental state. If you have goodwill for others, it's a wholesome mental state. Ill will is unwholesome, and ill will makes me suffer. Goodwill makes me happy, and then my actions resulting from that will be beneficial to the surroundings, whosoever it is. It could be human being, it could be animal, it could be environment. So it's a very straightforward criteria. No big philosophy about it. Just because it's a whole teaching is based on experience, phenomenology, experience, verify. So that's it, which is whenever mental states, and then we'll study them in detail. What are wholesome, what are unwholesome. But we just get an overall perspective first.
Sir, I have a question.
Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. So, it's around humility when one is practicing all these, so there might be a sense of pride that creeps in, and that would in turn end up feeding the ego that I am being generous, I am being grateful and all. So that would actually harm more
Yeah.
than
That is an unwholesome mental state. Pride is an unwholesome mental state.
even pride in peace.
Even pride in good things, yeah. Pride in your abilities. Pride in my ability to be a good student or good teacher or good daughter or good son or good father, whatever. Pride is something which is looks pleasant in the beginning, but eventually it causes agitation. Because then there's a fear. Somebody else may be superior to me. And if somebody else comes out who appears superior, then there'll be envy, there'll be jealousy, there'll be attempt to put him down and suffering. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Anything else?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay. Then you go to the next of the three factors of Sammasati. This is the Sammasati, wise mindfulness. Now you're already familiar on something about mindfulness, which is focused attention to the sensory experience. At the moment we are doing the breath. Then we also started doing the feelings arising at body. Did you do any of you work on it, or you just continue to the breath only, waiting for instruction? So you can observe the feelings arising from the touch in the body, feeling arising from seeing something, hearing something, tasting something, and giving focused attention to that demands mindfulness. And what is the characteristic of that? It is non-judgmental, non-reactive observation of whatever is happening, whatever is experienced within the body-mind complex. So you can see it is all embracing, being aware of the nature of experience. And not just being aware of the nature, but also discerning the nature of its experience, which means discernment of the characteristic of impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and impersonality of all the objects being observed. And I hope you remember what do you mean by object? It means object of the sense base. So the object of the ear would be
Sound.
sound, yeah. Object of the tongue would be
Taste.
taste. Okay, good. So becoming aware of the impermanence. We are focusing mostly on the impermanence. We said about the breath, about the body, similarly about others. And the unsatisfactoriness is in fact a consequence of impermanence, meaning that what is impermanence cannot give us abiding satisfaction. You can get happiness by eating a scoop of ice cream. Next one will give lesser, third one lesser. And if I say keep on eating 1,000 scoops, then it will become a cause of suffering. So the happiness does not lie in ice cream. Pleasant feelings are dependent on conditions. That's what we learn. Otherwise, the tongue is there, the ice cream is there, then it should keep on giving pleasant feeling all the time. 100th scoop will make you ill. Or maybe even earlier, I don't know, it depends on your capacity. So what are the various aspects of mindfulness? It's not just feelings. It is firstly being mindful of the body, of the feelings, of the state of the mind, and mental phenomena. Even during of mindfulness of the breath, you are becoming aware of the state of the mind. I didn't say it, but you can't escape it. You're observing the breath and suddenly some thought comes. What did I do at home? What did I do with my friend? And you get upset on remembering something. So some unwholesome state arises, or you remember, oh, I did such a wonderful thing, you become happy, joy arises. So you become aware of all of that. So there are all the 4 dimensions of mindfulness, and therefore important. And the simile is given to understand a gatekeeper of a fort. So there's a fort and there is a gatekeeper. What is the job of the gatekeeper? To keep an eye on who is coming, who is not coming, who is going, and the person who is coming is a friend or an enemy. And whenever he doesn't know, he doesn't recognize, he goes and tells the security officer, this person I don't know, please check up. So what will be the security officer? Which mental state will it be? Which recognizes whether the incoming input is a friend or a foe, whether the incoming mental state is wholesome or unwholesome. It will depend on the perception. So that's how we understand the role of various mental factors. Mindfulness is like gatekeeper of a fort, which must constantly be vigilant. Slight lack of vigilance and an enemy will enter and destroy. Slight lack of mindfulness and an unwholesome mental state will enter and upset you. That's the importance of mindfulness. And this is not just only on when you are sitting and meditating. This is required 24/7. Even a simple thing like crossing a road while in ring road, if you cross, you need to be four-dimensionally mindful because you never know the direction in which cars are coming. That only that if you see will not be enough. Because people drive in opposite direction also. So here in India, you have to be mindful four-dimensionally. And then there's another factor which is introduced in Buddha's teaching. He talks of sampajanya. Sampajanya or comprehensive knowledge, comprehensive awareness, which is a key factor of wise living. It means we have a clear comprehension of the object of attention, keeping in mind the four aspects: the purpose, the suitability, then not abandoning the object of meditation if you are a meditator and you want to continue, and then not getting lost in apparent reality or non-delusion. What does it mean? It is necessary. We are talking about mindfulness of during activities. So you are going to a shopping mall to purchase something. You decided, okay, I'll buy a dress for me. I want to buy a new top for me. I want to buy a new t-shirt for me. So that is your purpose. I'm just giving simple example. You go to the mall and you find the pants there must be very beautiful and they attract your attention and you end up buying a pant. You went there to buy a t-shirt. So the purpose is forgotten. And then you also to see whether the purpose you have chosen is suitable. If you're going in winter and buying a thin cotton t-shirt, is it going to be useful to me in winter? Or you go in summer and you end up buying a warm clothing, will it be suitable? Very simple example I'm giving. Or am I going because of craving, getting motivated by craving? Or a simple thing like taking bath is good for every day. But you have a very high fever. Is it good or not good? You have to check up suitability of the action, suitability of that activity. So the purpose, the suitability. Now these are the things for mundane purposes, from day-to-day life point of view. The other two are from the point of view of being a good meditator, one who's trying to work towards developing meditation and becoming free from suffering. First is not abandoning the object of meditation. What does it mean? That if, for example, the best for us would be keeping our object of meditation as mindfulness, that we want to be mindful of everything, whatever is happening. So this you can practice anytime. Whether you are sitting in the class, whether you are in your office, whether you are walking on the road, whether you're eating the food or cooking the food or cleaning the dishes or taking bath. Every moment one can be mindful and should be mindful. So you can keep the object of meditation always with you. You can keep during whatever activities you're doing, you can always be mindful. Mindful walking, mindful eating, mindful talking, mindful hearing. I'm speaking. I'm sure some of you must be thinking of something else at the moment. And you'll be hearing. Thought comes and mind goes there. So mindfulness of hearing is not there. So when you are sitting in a class, You hear carefully so that is the primary objective. When you're doing a task, sitting on your laptop, doing a work, that is the primary objective. I do that. I focus my attention on that. And then see that it is suitable. It's not that I'm writing an assignment and an ad comes and then I chase the ad and go and spend 1 hour in going and seeing through that YouTube video. Right. Focus. Keep my attention focused on the purpose of why I'm sitting in front of a computer. What is the suitability of that? Is this the right time to do so? Or is it time I must go and help in home some work or help the college in some work? So mindfulness can be there all the time. Then there's no meditation time and non-meditation time. You're constantly aware of what's going on. And the fourth is the aspect of wisdom, not getting lost in apparent reality, not getting carried away by the fact that I am doing mind meditation and I am such a good person, others are not. And the most important thing in not getting lost in apparent reality is understanding the impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and insubstantiality of phenomena, especially for activities being done by us, understanding the insubstantiality of the phenomena, giving up the doership and enjoyership. Because the doership is what gives rise to pride and ego. Without knowing who is the person who is doing, we think I am the doer. Without knowing who is the person who is getting angry, I think I am the angry. So that is the delusion, and that's of course the most difficult to overcome. This is what will lead to freedom from all suffering for all times to come. We can practice it slowly and slowly and slowly. When you're eating the food, for a few minutes think who's eating the food and find out who is eating the food. I say, I am eating. Okay, let me find who is this person who is eating. Who is this I who is eating? Try it out and see. I'm not saying that you don't eat the food as a result, but figure it out. What's going on? Figure it out. That's it. That's what is meant by not getting lost in apparent reality. So they're very, very interesting things. If you do it once in a while and try it out, and you don't have to constantly do it, at least at this stage. Do it once, do it again sometime, do it again. Whenever the world becomes too much with you, it overwhelms you, you try to find out who is getting overwhelmed. And you feel like giving up, find out who is it that is feeling like giving up. Or is it just a condition that the body is tired and there is an unpleasant feeling in the body and there is a reaction to that feeling, bereft of wisdom, bereft of the understanding that it is after all impermanent. So if you keep on doing these kind of investigations, the kind of investigation expected in the assignment number 2, and you do it again and again and again, you'll get into a habit of seeing things impersonally. You realize everything is happening due to certain conditions. There was a sense contact, there was a feeling, and because of the inability to see, because of the perception, the feeling was pleasant or unpleasant. And because of my ignorance, I reacted to the feeling. I didn't see that it is unpleasant or it is impermanent. I forgot that the feeling is impermanent and reacted to it. Fine, so become aware. When you do it again and again, there is an internal repugnance to this repeated foolishness. And one becomes more and more careful. Okay, it's an unpleasant feeling. Let me just see it. then that's the transformation. Powerful transformation will happen. So mindfulness is one of the most important faculties which we have to develop. All of us have that innate spark of mindfulness, but it has to be cultivated, repeatedly doing it again and again and again. It becomes our habit, and it's just a matter of developing the habit of being mindful, trying to be alert, trying to be aware what's going on in my life. I'm not trying to hide behind, typical as you said, like an ostrich puts its head in the sand, and there is fear. Don't want to face the situation. No, we'll be mindful and see. Fear is arising. Fine, let us see what happens. That's the practice of mindfulness. And of course, we need to have both internal and external mindfulness. Because if you are totally given to internal mindfulness, you'll become introvert and it can create difficulties, especially at a young age like yours. So you should balance between introversion and extroversion. Be mindful of your own mental states and also the outside, what's going on. What is the state of the mind of my people with whom I am interacting? You can figure it out from face, bodily, verbal, non-verbal communication tells that person is getting angry, this person is getting greedy, this person is trying to be malicious. You can figure it out. And just develop appropriate measures to protect you. Protect in the sense, not allowing the external situations to upset you. It doesn't mean you constantly keep on gazing at others, kya kar raha hai. That become problematic in its own way. Okay? And as I have mentioned here, there is a caveat here. Some people can hide their emotions very cleverly, so you have to be careful. You will not be able to judge really. But that needs much greater capability of seeing through the person's behavior. It needs more capability to see through the non-verbal communication, see to the mismatch between his words and his emotions, and you can figure out the person is making it up. He's trying to praise me, but his body shows that he's actually very upset. He's actually envious, but he's praising me. You can figure it out. So both internal and external mindfulness are very, very important in our day-to-day life. And obviously, if this is cultivated and done in this proper manner, especially in trying to figure out the discernment of the nature of the phenomena experience in terms of impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and impersonality, then you progress in the path of progress of purifying the mind. Mind gets purified. Defilements tend to reduce and the suffering will reduce. Okay, so that is the second factor. Any questions about it?
No, sir.
Okay, now we go to the third one. Okay, I'll put down something more here. We have both negative and positive descriptions in the literature. Negative one, we've already said, guides the mind from absent-mindedness, prevents one from falling into undesirable mental states and situations, and protects one from making mistakes. You can easily see this. And positive aspect will be to keep you focused as a tool of concentration and investigation, and it guides the flow of our thoughts so that the mind does not get impure. It prevents us from gathering impurities. And one often statement is made that out of various mental factors, this is one which is useful in all situations. Whether one is suffering or whether one is happy, mindfulness is extremely powerful and helpful. So they say it's like salt. You can use it in all curries, bitter, sweet, whatever you like. And how to get it? It is observing the object of attention very closely, trying to be very careful observation and practicing it again and again and again. Basically, the practice of mindfulness itself will increase the ability to be mindful. So just developing that habit of being mindful. Okay. Then we come to the third aspect of Samādhi, or wise concentration. It means it's defined as concentration or collectedness of mind or ekagrata, singleness of mind. Now, Samadhi can be wholesome and unwholesome. So when you say Samadhi, it means wholesome Samadhi. And when does it become wholesome? When all other 7 factors of the Eightfold Path are also present. Otherwise, you can develop Samadhi on unwholesome mental objects and end up doing unwholesome deeds. People who have done a lot of damage to the world, harmed the world, societies, people, they also have often had very strong concentrations. So concentration is a double-edged sword. One has to be careful that it is coupled with wholesome and other wholesome mental qualities. So that's why it is said, any singleness of mind equipped with the remaining 7 factors of Eightfold Path. Now, for developing concentration, obviously, you have to choose an object. What does it consist? Just as we are doing mindfulness of breath. So we're choosing breath as an object. You could choose various other things. And traditionally, in the Buddhist literature, we find 40 different objects mentioned. It could range from discs of various colors, contemplation of corpses, of various elements, to breaths, to recollection of certain teachings, recollection of good qualities of our teachers, Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, and on meditation on compassion, on loving kindness. So these are the various objects which you can use for raising concentration. So you take a disc, for example, of a particular color, focus attention on it with open eyes for long periods of time. When mind wanders away, you bring it back again, do it again and again. Till a time comes that when you close the eye, the disc is appearing in your mind's eye. You remember it. You close the eye and disappears within your mind's eye. And then you focus on that. Then you don't need external device. You focus on that continuously, till the mind learns the art of becoming focused. You can do it on sound. The mantra meditation is basically like that. Or you can take a gong and strike it. There will be strong sound, and then it slowly falls down. Keep on attending to it till it's keep on falling. And till it stops, then you give it another push. So in this way, you use sound as a method of concentration. Then you can use practice of loving kindness. There's a proper way by which you practice loving kindness. And then you can keep an person for whom you have a natural tendency of being sending goodwill to him. And then you remember him or her and keep it in your imagination. And by remembering him, the mind gets suffused with goodwill. And then you practice on goodwill. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be free from illness. Whatever words you want to use. And then use them continuously. Keep that person in your mind and practice goodwill. So goodwill increases, then your concentration increases. So various ways in this manner, you can practice the concentration. And of course, when it is practiced over large periods of time, you get different levels of concentration. They are called absorption in the object of meditation. There are still states of profound stillness and deep concentration. They are called jhanas in the Buddhist literature. They're called jhanas. And there are 8 different varieties. I don't want to bother you all of them, but there are 8 different varieties and extreme to very powerful concentration, and they can lead to extrasensory powers. They can lead to what are called siddhis. There is supernatural powers. Of course, choosing the object of concentration, which is usually called, is a very delicate task and should be done with the consultation of a teacher. Unless you choose a very universal factor like breath. Breath may not be suitable for all, depending on the temperament. So you have to choose the object appropriately based on the temperament, so that there is a balance is restored and the meditation improves. So I'm giving some typical examples. This is also the way by which you handle the strong, unwholesome tendencies. So if there is a person who is greedy or is lustful, so he is advised to contemplate on non-beautiful nature of the body. He is advised to contemplate on a skeleton. Or you take a diagram, in modern terms you could say take a diagram of the human body with its skin taken apart and say this is the reality of the human body, and now you focus on that and see what is the beauty in it. Or even more, you can meditate on corpses, dead body, in various stages of disintegration. So depending on the intensity of the lust, you practice like that. Especially monks practice it in this tradition, so that the tendency of lust is subjugated. Of course, ultimately it will go only through, it's only a kind of suppression of it. It will ultimately go through wisdom. But this is the method when it becomes uncontrolled, then these methods are used. So concentration does not end the defilements, it suppresses them. So that it's like a glass of water which is muddy. You allow it to settle down, mud will settle down, and on the top of it will be clear water. So it's like mind is allowed to settle down so that the impurities go deep into the subconscious. At the conscious level, mind becomes pure. But to remove the defilements from within, you have to cultivate the wisdom so that you see those defilements for what they are and they are removed. So as far as concentration is concerned, these are the kind of practices. So if one has a greedy nature or if one has a lustful nature, then this is the kind of contemplation. If one has a nature of eating too much, then you have a ahara particular sanya, which means you practice on the nature of what happens to the food when it goes into the body. So the food which you have lying there looks so beautiful when it goes into the mouth and we masticate it and chew it. You can take it out and see how beautiful it is. This will not be easy for people with not enough motivation to do that, but that's the way practices are done. So as to develop reduction in the attachment to food, reduction in the attachment to body, because bodily attachment can lead to very difficult mental states and can lead to unwholesome action, breaking of the precepts. So if you have a mind which is chattering too much, speculative or deluded, mindfulness of breathing is recommended for that person. It doesn't mean that I assumed that you are deluded, but this is the universally accepted meditation to begin with, because it calms down the mind. There's very number of advantages. Then if you have somebody has a strong faith in, say, Buddha or the teaching or some monk or some teacher or in good qualities or in generosity, then he's asked focus attention on that. So say, remember the good qualities of Buddha or good qualities of your teacher, of your spiritual guide. Remember them and try to remember, see its various manifestations so that the mind gets focused on, say, generosity. This is what generosity, and when I did this, this is how I got happy. And so you contemplate on that continuously. If you're on an inquisitive temperament, then mindfulness of elements, which I had mentioned, which we'll talk about later, I had mentioned about earth, air, fire, water. Mind. So you want to inquire into the depth, what is the nature of body, then you practice mindfulness of elements or mindfulness of death. It may not be easy for you to practice these things, but I'm just mentioning for the sake of completeness. And these are the whole diversity of practices which exist under wise concentration. Okay, so I'll temporarily stop and ask if there are any questions.
So, I have a question related to the ethical restraints, what we discussed in the previous class. So, may I ask it right now?
Yeah, sure.
So, sir, there are certain jobs like police or army where killing or violence is a part of those kind of jobs, and we often see them as essential in the current context. So, from a Buddhist perspective, will these then be seen as not a part of wise livelihood? And if so, then how do we understand them in the current context?
Yeah, it's a difficult situation for me to answer. As long as we are practicing, you see, behind every action, there is an intention. So what is the intention behind a police officer's activity or a military officer's? If it is self-defense, the intensity of the action is not motivated by anger towards the other person, then the action has a different flavor. But if it is done by anger, then it will have a different flavor. Do you get it?
Yes, sir.
It is the intention which is really of crucial importance. So one has to keep that in mind. But of course, there are certain things like killing which cannot be termed wholesome in the Buddha's teaching. So there's a difference there. For in Indian some of the Indic religions, there is a distinction between righteous killing and unrighteous killing. In Buddha's teachings, that kind of distinction is not made. So it is said that killing it's not possible to kill anybody with a noble intention. So that's a big question mark, of course. So one has to see what kind of livelihood does one approach. If one wants to follow the path to ultimate liberation. Okay. So one has to, it's not that the people who are in police or military cannot become enlightened. It's not like that. But when they are walking on the path of freedom from all birth and death, then that action has to be given up. There are stories of murderers like Angulimala who had probably killed many more people than any army officer would ever happen to kill. He had killed 999 people because of some delusion created by his teacher. So under that situation, clearly, it couldn't be that he could become enlightened and yet keep on killing. It's only when he stopped killing and practiced and then transformed his mind that he could become fully enlightened. To the extent that when he used to go for alms round, people used to beat him up, because they would remember he's the same guy, they would think he's the same guy. They would throw stones at him, beating up, he would be bleeding, and still he would say, may you be happy. Yes, I was deluded and I did a lot of harm. This is the result of my karma. Fine, go ahead. That's the transformation which can happen.
So then where does the ideas of Bhagavad Gita stand?
Yeah, that's,
That
what
we
I said,
believe.
that's why I'm saying they're not matching with that. The idea of righteous killing is not found in the Buddha's teaching. Very simple. So one has to choose what one wants to do. It's not that I'm suggesting that this is superior to others. I'm just teaching you this is what Buddha's teachings are. And there is a reason for it. Because there's a certain philosophy behind it, which is something which you can verify from your own experience. I'm not suggesting that you try to kill and verify, but you can see the attitude we have towards pests, for example. We inside human beings, which is a big job. The attitude we have towards pests in the home. Are we being kind to them when we kill them? Do we do it out of kindness? Just you think about it. So people who are mindful have seen that that's why newer products have been developed which repel the pests rather than kill them. So today, at least in India, our CSIR has developed a series of products which are pest repellents, whether it is for ants, for cockroaches, for mosquitoes. They're repellents. They repel them out. So they throw them out of the room. They can't stay in that house. They'll just walk out, run away from that environment. And the other extreme is you put electrical wires and then they come and get repelled and they're burned to death. That's the other extreme. I've seen it happen in hotels and at homes. People do. They take a racket. You might have seen with electrical wires attached to them with a battery, and you sweat the mosquitoes and they just burn up like tuck. And people think, oh, good, you've done something wonderful. I'm not saying you do it or not do it. I leave it for you to contemplate whether it's worth doing or not. Whether putting a pest repellent and spraying it is better than that or not. Any other question?
Sir, I don't know. Sir, it might be a little personal question. I don't know. I have been wondering it for a while.
Yeah, if you don't mind sharing with your friends, there's no problem with it.
Sir, Sunil sir told us that you used to believe in Vedantic school of thought before you turned to Vipassana. So what are the thoughts, sir? Like what was that process in the head that because before studying Buddhist philosophy, I studied Sri Aurobindo's thought, and sometimes they are not things doesn't fit, and I wonder. So
Yeah, you're right. They don't fit. See, if they fitted, they would have been one. The India's greatness has been that from the same Sanatan Dharma or the eternal principle, there are eternal principles. What are the eternal principles? Goodness leads to wholesome mental states lead to happiness, unwholesome mental states lead to unhappiness. Everybody agrees in India, in Indian philosophies. I'm not talking of Semitic religions and they have their own philosophies. I'm not saying they're right or wrong. I'm just mentioning about here. Whether you take Sikhism, you take Jainism, you take Buddhism, you take Shaivism, you take Vaishnavites, everybody believes in that straight because it is experientially verifiable. This is the eternal principle. Okay? And that the cycle of birth and death is a cycle of suffering. Everybody believes it. Some people say it should be transcended. Some say no, we should serve. That's fine. There's a principle in Buddhist schools also called Bodhisattva principle. For example, Dalai Lama is such a great man. They believe that we should not transcend the cycle of birth and death till we take all of us with us, till we get that capability. So they believe in becoming a Buddha rather than becoming free by themselves. Great salutations to them. Yeah, that's it. Then there are other schools which have all their special differences. Some have philosophical aspects and differences. Some have differences in terms of their ultimate metaphysical goals. Vedanta has its own goals. But if you see the practices they recommend, they're not incongruent with it. So it is only at the apex level that there are differences in understanding. And the kind of practices and the availability of teachers for those practices. You see? So the practices in Vedanta are substantially similar to the Buddhist teaching. If you see the Yoga Sutras, the practices are similar. But there's a fundamental difference. The first verse of Yoga Sutra says, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga is stopping of the thinking process, which is called Samādhi in Buddha's teaching. Pragya is something higher. That's not mentioned there. There's a difference. Of course, they use the word pragya if you study the whole Yoga Sutra, the pragya word is used. Some pragya samadhi is used. But what exactly it is? In Bhagavad Gita, the description of pragya is absolutely matching with the Buddha's teachings. If you have studied it, have you studied it, Bhagavad Gita? Or you're just speaking?
No, I studied little bit of it, not completely, some of it.
Second chapter, just chapter number 2.
First and second chapter as of now.
What is the definition of Smriti Pragya in chapter number 2?
In Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, see, there's a whole chapter on Sthiti Pragya. Arjuna asked him, Sthiti Pragya se ka bhasha, Samadhista Keshava. Keshava, tell me, what is the definition of Sthiti Pragya? And then he speaks out the qualities. Go and read it today. And you will see exactly what we have been discussing here. So there is a lot of similarities. But at the final level, what are the things to be done and not done? There are certain differences, and it's for us to choose. That's the beauty of the Indian tradition. You're given freedom to choose. You're given even freedom to be atheist. There's a Charvak philosophy. He says, but come on, eat, drink, and be merry. Forget about everything.
Sir, how do you know what is right and what is better? Or there is no point of asking this question, what is right and what is better?
Your own inner conscience. Believe in it. Believe in it. Develop the purity of mind, and that pure mind will tell you. All Indian traditions agree the mind should be purified. So do that. Forget about what I should do further. When you purify the mind slowly, without any encumbrance of any kind, without any assumption of any kind, do it and see what results come. That's the way. That's the way I did. In Indian tradition, there is no commandment. Actually, Indian tradition is, and does not believe in God. Actually, they believe in devatas. There's no creator God in India. We talk of Brahma and all; they are part of Puranas. Brahma, the creator; Shiva, the destroyer; Vishnu, the one who takes care. But they're all things for explanation. There may be devas of that kind. I'm not denying. But actually, what is the creation? How do we get reborn? Is masterly explained by Buddha, and I'll explain to you in due course. And I can verify that. I can see it happening moment to moment. So I don't need anybody else to tell me this is right and this is not right, because I know it from my own experience. This is what is happening to me every day. And this is what, fortunately, many of the traditions also corroborate it in Indian traditions. So it is now for us, for our own wisdom, to figure out what should we be doing. And life's experiences will teach you, as they taught me. Yeah, that this is what practice I was doing, and a very major experience made me realize that was not sufficient for me. Whatever practices I did with Vedanta very earnestly, meeting with teachers, studying with some sannyasis also. Well, yeah, I had benefited. It's not that I didn't benefit. I benefited it substantially. But when a very major event occurred in life, I couldn't handle it as efficiently as I wanted to. Then therefore, question arose, something is there. Something more should be done. Then I followed the teachings of the Buddha for some. And then I followed that tradition for almost 25 years. And then I realized, no, there also there is some shortcoming. It takes you up to that. So whatever they said, this is what you will achieve. Everything I experienced. But I said, I have not become free. So one has to have that humility of and introspective ability to see and not remain in a fool's paradise. Oh, I became a meditation teacher and I had a lot of students and I would conduct courses. I was coordinator for all that. I was coordinating Tihar jail prisoners, coordinating in North India, teaching, becoming an instructor of the teachers trainer, and so on. And there was a kind of a kick in it for some time. Let's see, the reality is not as it ought to be, as was the original purpose. The original purpose is getting sidetracked. So I said, yeah, we should explore other things. And we found, yeah, there is something more to be learned. So once you keep an open mind and you work on purification of the mind, nature helps you. The teacher will appear before you. You have to be sincere, that's all. If one has a sincerity of purpose, yes, I want to be free from suffering, and really free, not just superficially free. I want to progress spiritually, really, and that is my top priority of life. Then nature will help you in due course, depending on your intensity of your dhamma samveg, of your intensity of your respiration. Nature helps, there's no doubt. You'll find appropriate teacher. But you have to orient our life and keep the objective clear. If the objective keeps on vacillating, then obviously it'll happen. It'll take a few hundred lives. At the moment, it may take 20, 30 lives, or it may take few million lives. Then it will take 500,000, then 100,000, so on. Fine. So we practice. If we keep our objectives strong aspiration, that strong aspiration will give us next birth with the same aspiration carried on. So when you look at the life in a big picture situation, you realize, yeah, that's what is most important, is your aspiration. What do you want to do in life? So the course correction, the appropriate teacher, all that nature provides automatically. But it provides it in the best method which nature has for teaching us is suffering. So it will create such suffering that you'll be forced to think, "Aap kya karo?" You can either give up, as I told you, there are two responses to suffering. Either you can increase suffering or you can explore and understand suffering. If you really want to understand, that's the only thing really which is needed. You don't give up in face of suffering. If you don't give up in face of suffering and say, come on, I want to understand, what is life wanting to teach me? Just this question, if you ask again and again, you'll find the solution. I can assure you. Everything in the life is trying to teach us something. I don't know whether I had shared with you, there's a very famous quotation. In the school, we learn the lesson and then give the test. In the life, We take a test and learn the lesson. The life gives us a test and then we learn the lesson. And so true. But if we take a test of the life as our, oh, get depressed about it, oh, I'm really good for nothing. After so many years of practice, I still suffer. Then the suffering has become a cause for more suffering. Or if you take that's why it's called the freedom is a warrior's path. In Upanishads, there's a statement that walking on the spiritual journey is like walking on a razor's edge. If you're not careful, you'll cut yourself. Okay, does it satisfy you, dear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other question?
So, is there a thing that Buddha talks about that, like whenever we think in some language mostly, like the thoughts come, they come in form of words. So, is there some explanation for it? Or is it possible that after a point, thoughts will not come in form of words?
Why should, how will they come then?
No, I don't know. Just a question. Like there is a person who does not know a language, or does a monkey think? If a monkey think, does he thinks in words?
I can assure you the chances of a monkey becoming enlightened are 10 raised to the minus 100, 1000 or something. Thinking is not our enemy. That's not
Yes,
true.
just a question. I don't know. I was wondering today when you was.
Thinking is not our enemy. Thinking is good, provided I consciously think.
Yes.
Not that thinking thinks me. Not that
Right.
thinking happens to me unconsciously. I'm sitting here and thinking something else while I should be listening to what's going on. I'm walking on the road and thinking of something else. I'm eating food and thinking of something else. That's automatic thinking. That is called mind is full, Full. Just one L you add to mindful. That's the difference. That makes all the difference. Whether you are mindful or mind is full. Unfortunately for us, mind is always full of thoughts. So we are not mindful. We are not aware what's going on. So if you consciously think, consciously plan about your life, study and reflect on it, that's perfectly fine. And that has to be done in a certain manner, certain language. There's no other way. Unless you develop the deep samadhi where you can directly experience the truths. When you do practice mindfulness of breath, we have to think about whether the breath is going in or out, or do you directly know it?
Directly know it.
So there's no thinking involved in that process, isn't it?
Yes.
But if you have to think, what will I do? And if I give you a question and you have to answer, then you have to think. Isn't it?
Yes.
So there is a direct knowledge of the simple kind, like being aware of the breath, or being aware of anger, being aware of greed. That's a direct observation. Isn't it? That's not thinking, that's direct knowledge. There in the Indian system, there's got three modes of knowing. One is inference, other is sensory knowledge, other is direct knowledge. So direct knowledge is not there in the, Western psychology doesn't understand what is direct knowledge. They know of inference and sensory perception. But there is a direct knowledge, which is called, in Sanskrit, a beautiful word, aparoksha anubhuti. There's a anubhuti means experience, there's a inference, and there is a paroksha means आपके आंखों के सामने जो है, that is sensory information is called paroksha. But aparoksha means which is directly known, like you know the breath directly, you know the anger directly. So when you practice meditation, you begin to get the taste of direct knowing. Okay, is it making sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other question? Please don't hesitate. Don't feel hesitant of asking anything and everything. I know. Did you reflect on the issue of telling truth, which we discussed in the last class?
Thanks to our parents.
Hmm?
Sir, before that, I just want to ask, I understand awareness of breath, but like how anger and other mental states, how are they direct knowledge? Aren't they knowledge perceived by sensory interactions? So sensory knowledge.
Sensory interactions create them. Isn't it? They create them. You directly experience the feeling. If your friend sitting next door touches you, do you have to think about what is happening to you on the body? You directly experience the feeling of touch. If she heats up a rod and touches your body, do you have to think whether it is hot or not? You directly experienced. They are direct sensory perceptions. Heating that is just a feeling, but there are things which are being which arise in the mind. Even they can be directly experienced. Things may arise because of sensory interaction and all that, but you experience them. Next time you get angry, try to figure it out and see. That's the best way to know, isn't it? The teachings of the Buddha are such that you should verify them. He never says you believe it. You verify it yourself. But of course, to be able to verify, you would have some ability, especially the ability of mind being in reasonable level of control. Because if the anger rises and we get carried away, there's no way we can know what's going on. But if the anger rises and say, oh, anger is arising, then you can know, yeah, anger is arising. And you can see, even for a split second, if you know, you may be getting carried away and you must see, oh, anger is arising. And there will be a brake put on that. You can try it out. If you're getting angry and you suddenly know, oh, I'm getting angry, there will be a brake. It's like a train which is going on and you put a brake. But the brake is not strong enough and the train does not halt, still goes ahead. Again, you put a brake and then it will stop. It will stop, say, within 5 minutes. If you're not put the brakes, it will carry on for hours. So that's what actually, that's how the mind works. You can verify that. Okay, anything else? Some of you have not submitted the assignment number 2, so please submit it. Is that young man here? He's not submitted assignment number 1 also. There's a boy also in your class. No? Is he attending or no?
He's not
Hmm.
here now, sir. Sir, I have also not submitted the assignment. I wasn't here. The first assignment as well. For the past week.
You're joined now, is it?
Yes, sir. For past week, I went back my home. My grandmother was sick, so I wasn't here.
Submitted, that's okay.
Yes,
But we
sir.
had 7 people in the beginning. Has now, were you included in the beginning or not?
Yes, sir. In the beginning, I was there, but then in
And
between.
went to the- Okay.
Yes, yes.
Just 9
We have total 9 students, sir.
But I thought I was told by Sunita 7, because I have not seen more than 7 anytime.
So-
because not all 9 are coming every day, probably.
And
Okay.
some sit on the other side of the camera. So some of them, like
So
only
at
these
least-
people can be visible in the camera.
Someday I should see the class trying. Of course, I know the DU has the culture of not all the people attending all the time. So I studied in your School of Buddhist Studies for 1 year recently. Recently means 2011 after my retirement. And I got a clue of what is happening in DU.
So
Of
that
course,
is
your class is much better. There we in the class we used to be 3 students essentially. Myself, another elderly lady, and 1 or 2 more young boys. And when it came to exam, there were 20 people. I said, "Hey, what is going on? How did suddenly, how did 20 people turn up for examination?" So I realized that D was a different culture. Okay, anything else? No? We can sit and meditate for some time. You can practice the mindfulness of breath and calm down the mind for some time. Then I'll maybe recite the typical words we use for practicing loving kindness or goodwill. Sukito. You might be happy. Nindukko. May I be free from suffering. Averu. May I be free from animosity. Pancho. May I be free from ill will. Anugo. May I be free from anxiety. Sukhiyattaman pariharami. May I be able to take care of myself. Sambe satta sukhitam. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings be free from animosity. May all beings be free from ill will. May all beings be free from anxiety. Sukhiyattanam pariharantu. May all beings be able to take care of them happily. Good, so we can stop now. This is a truncated version of our practice of loving kindness. We start from ourselves and then spread it to others. Actually, there are steps. We start from ourselves, then we remember those who are dear to us, say our parents, our teachers, our friends, relatives, then to others. Then you can expand it to beings in different directions of living in different directions, beings who are of different realms of existence. So there's various levels of practice depending on the extent of purity of the mind. Okay. Good. So thank you. And
Thank you.
close